Contrary to the dominant narrative that has flooded the media and social networks for weeks, the United States has not lost control over the Middle East, and rising gasoline prices will not destroy the American economy. Quite the opposite. A prolonged conflict in the Persian Gulf is, for Washington, a calculated strategic advantage, not a catastrophe. Today, the United States is the world's largest oil producer, with record output of approximately 13.6 million barrels per day in 2025. Even more importantly, since 2020, America has become a net exporter of crude oil and petroleum products, with a surplus of about 2.8 million barrels per day. The situation has completely reversed from just a decade and a half ago, when the U.S. was heavily dependent on imports from the Middle East. In this new reality, higher oil prices, driven by tensions in the Strait of Hormuz, do not inflict fatal damage on the American economy. Yes, American drivers feel the pain at the pump, and it creates short-term frustration. But the real winners are America's major oil companies, ExxonMobil, Chevron, and ConocoPhillips, which are raking in exceptional profits from domestic shale production. These profits translate into massive new investments, well-paying jobs in producing states like Texas, North Dakota, and New Mexico, generous dividends for shareholders, and extra tax revenue for the federal budget. Official propaganda and armchair commentators obsess over military costs and reputational damage while completely ignoring the favorable energy balance for the United States. For a net producer and exporter, a prolonged conflict that keeps oil prices elevated, with analysts forecasting Brent crude averaging over $80 per barrel in extended crisis scenarios, acts as a powerful profit accelerator. Every extra dollar on the price of a barrel effectively transfers wealth from vulnerable importers straight to the American energy sector. So who is really footing the bill? The ranking of losers is clear and telling. China is the biggest strategic loser. As the world's largest oil importer, with more than half of its supply coming from the Gulf and passing through the Strait of Hormuz, Beijing faces enormous logistical costs, disrupted supply chains, and further slowdown in an economy already struggling. For Washington, this amounts to valuable time gained in its long-term geopolitical competition with its main rival.
Europe comes next as a major collateral victim. Heavily dependent on Middle Eastern imports and lacking the cheap Russian alternative it once had, the continent risks sliding into a new energy crisis, bringing renewed inflation, higher industrial costs, and a loss of global competitiveness. The Gulf states, Saudi Arabia, the UAE, Kuwait, and Iraq, face a painful paradox. Prices may be high, but their physical exports are blocked or extremely expensive due to the conflict. The volume they can actually sell drops far more than the price rises, delivering a severe blow to economies that are still heavily reliant on oil revenue. Even Russia, which might appear to benefit from higher prices at first glance, is missing out. Ukrainian drone attacks on its oil infrastructure have knocked out roughly 40% of its export capacity, preventing Moscow from capitalizing on the favorable market. The United States ranks last in this hierarchy of losses. Pump prices and military spending are real, but they are more than offset by the structural gains of its energy sector. A cold look at the numbers shows that America has turned its old vulnerability, dependence on Gulf oil, into a durable strategic advantage. In short, the war in Iran is not a defeat for Washington. It is a war of attrition that the U.S. can sustain far longer than any other player involved. While China, Europe, the Gulf states, and even Russia count their real losses, the American oil industry keeps pumping Texas and Dakota crude, turning prolonged tensions into an efficient mechanism for global wealth transfer. The energy numbers are firmly on America's side, and no amount of media noise can change that structural reality.